Either late 89 or early 90, somewhere in there. I first met John when he called me. He called me to come over to his place at Westbeth, which is, at that time, it still is, it's artists' housing in, or subsidized artist apartments in New York City, in the Greenwich Village, and that's where John lived. For the first few years, I knew him, and then I think he's been in Katona for 20 years, but at least. But yeah, I first met him when he called me to come over and play a session with him, very informal, just get together and play a few tunes, and so we did that, and that's when I first met him. I first played with John for his record Meant to Be. It was with Joe Lovano and Mark Johnson and John, and of course John's compositions. And I think the idea being this was going to be a working band, not just a recording date, which is what it ended up being. So we went on the road, and for me it was very exciting, to play with such a great band. And the band had a really great chemistry too, because Joe and John have a chemistry, and both Joe and John went back with Mark Johnson, and I knew Mark actually from Stanford Jazz Workshop. He was one of my teachers there. At a certain point, maybe about a year in, Dennis Irwin replaced Mark Johnson, and so it went on for another couple years. So I guess for about maybe 3 years, at least. Yeah, about that was the group that I played with Joe and John. It was great for me. It was a great experience and great to be part of that. And I felt at home in the music, and I felt like it set me up to do what I was better at than some other things, for instance. It was a lot of fun. So it was my first thing with John, and then there was a group with Larry Goldings. After that, with Dennis also a great group. We did also Matheny Project with him and Pat and John together. So that was a lot of fun, and we did a big tour and all that. So a big Europe summer tour. And then in the late '90s, I think we started doing the trio with Steve Swallow. And there was also a group with James Genus and Larry Goldings for a short time. And there was a group with Seamus Blake and Jesse Murphy for a year or so. There was a group with Seamus and Kevin Hayes and Larry Grenadier too in the late '90s. And yeah, there's been a lot of groups now that I think of it. There was a group with Ben Street and Michael Eckroth. There was a group with Gerald Clayton and Vicente Archer. Well, every band that I played with John has been different, because anytime you have musicians who play differently, and maybe the instrumentation's different too, then you have a different chemistry. So each group is sounds and feels different. I guess John and I are there, but but John's tunes are always the common thread. So he writes all the music for most of his projects. So he's a great composer and has written a lot of stuff and some real gems over the years. So love playing with Gerald and Vicente together with John, and really like the chemistry, and different every night, and also a nice band to be on the road with. It's good to be friends. So, well, I've always liked the process of how John leads the band. He'll bring in, usually to a sound check. Sometimes we'll have a separate rehearsal, but a lot of times at sound check he'll bring something in new, or we'll have a rehearsal and go over some new things. But actually, sometimes he puts the music and he'll hand a lead sheet to me, and he won't tell me like what kind of a groove it is. Sometimes I'll ask and he'll tell me, but sometimes we just start playing it, which is kind of fun to just figure out what it should be. But each one of John's compositions is different, so I can't say that they're all a certain way. But he's always given me some leeway to experiment and try some different things in terms of how I orchestrate his tunes. He doesn't have an absolute idea of how he wants it, and tell me this has to be that way and that way, and he lets me figure some stuff out, and I guess it's worked out, since we played together a lot. So, but it's nice. I think John lets the musicians that are in his bands, be themselves, which I think is a good thing to do as a band leader. And when I lead a band, I try to do that as well. I mean, if there's something specific needed, great, we can discuss. But it's good to let everybody find what they're comfortable with, and music often works better that way. John is, he's a great guitarist, great composer. You'd recognize him in a couple notes, and he has a lot of different influences in his playing. A lot of different styles of music. Mainly a lot of deep kind of jazz kind of stuff, I guess you would say, but also very influenced by rock and R&B and even country. We did a country record. All sorts of stuff. So it's all in there, but it all comes out sounding like him. I think his touch on the guitar is very distinctive. Just I don't know. There's something about the tone, the way it comes out. It doesn't sound like anyone else I could mention. So, and it doesn't sound like other jazz guitar players like Wes Montgomery or this kind of thing. It's not that style of thing. So it has I think the rock and blues influence, blues players like B.B. King and different people that John heard. But it always comes out sounding like him. So John is he likes to play, so he wants to go out there and play, and he really, I think, looks forward to the gigs, and but there's a certain toughness there, to go on the road and do what he does. 28, 29 years I've been touring with John, so when you've been touring that long, you have a lot of reference points, There's another band that I played with off and on for 30 years, and we have a lot of reference points too. There's a lot of things you remember and people and places that you can refer to that sort of, it's almost like your own little private language in a way. I'm sure just the experience of playing with John has made me a better player. I think also I admire his compositions. I try to write some music too, and I like that his compositions, they always have a vibe, always a feeling, an overall feeling that I get from them, and not the same feeling for each one, And he doesn't overwrite. He doesn't make things that are complicated for the sake of being complicated. Some of his tunes are fairly simple, but and some of them are not easy, but they always set up a good vibe, and they're always fun to play, and they're also always things that you can play differently on successive nights. So when you're out on tour doing 30 gigs in a row, it's nice if you're trying to play creatively. It's nice to be able to play it different each night and have different things happen, and that keeps us into the music. And I think the audience senses that too. Senses that we're discovering some things. So John's writing compositions have always set up a nice vibe with a certain amount of looseness that I think is part of his music. Vicente is a great bass player, a great, very centering kind of player, and also comes up with a lot of creative things, different bass notes, but always with a nice groove and centering feeling. And Gerald is always there's a certain chill factor of Gerald. He's very relaxed with a certain kind of almost elegance, and very creative. On both Vicente and Gerald have, excellent ears and listening, and we were, it was a lot of fun. We went for different things each night, and uh, that that made it really fun for me. Pat's been with John a long time. Yeah, Pat's great at what he does. I think Pat really loves to mix. He likes to mix the show or mix a board tape but he also works very hard on managing us on the road and dealing with all sorts of transportation issues, and if something goes wrong, he's dealing with that. So his job is actually kind of the hardest of everyone. He gets the least sleep and has maybe the most hours on duty. And been with John a long time, but yeah, it's good for John to have someone like Pat there.